Steam clung to the narrow walls of the faculty cafe kitchen, curling around the ceiling vents like it had nowhere else to go. Plates clinked, pans hissed, and the faint murmur of academic chatter filtered in from the dining area. In the back corner, near the industrial sink, Michael Patel worked quietly, his hands moving in practiced rhythm as he rinsed and stacked dishes. The water was always too hot, but he never flinched. Outside, near the espresso machine, a visiting dean from another campus leaned across a table surrounded by graduate students. His suit was impeccable, his confidence louder than necessary. He pulled a paper napkin from the dispenser and, with a fountain pen, scribbled an equation full of integrals and variables that twisted like vines. "This," he said with a half-smirk, "is what stumped half my department last semester. Solve it, and I'll buy you lunch all week." The students laughed, half daring each other to try, none lifting a pencil. Michael kept his eyes down, scrubbing a soup pot, but his ears caught every word. His gaze drifted toward the napkin when one of the students walked past the counter holding it up, joking about how it looked like alien language. Michael didn't smile, but his eyes lingered. Then he looked away. An hour later, the lunch rush died. Tables were mostly cleared. The dean had stepped outside to take a call. The napkin sat alone, smudged at the corners, abandoned like a forgotten bet. Michael dried his hands, reached for a fresh sheet of printer paper from near the order counter, and picked up a dull pencil used to label leftovers. Standing off to the side, he rewrote the problem carefully. He paused only once, midway, then continued writing with fluid ease. When he finished, he folded the paper in half, set it next to the napkin, and went back to the sink. By the time the dean returned, the cafe had thinned out. He grabbed his coat and chuckled when he saw the folded page. "Another brave soul?" he asked aloud. A student opened the note and began reading. Her eyebrows lifted. "Wait! This looks right." Another leaned over her shoulder. "No way!" He explained each step. The dean took the paper, scanning it. His smirk faded slowly, replaced by something quieter. "Who wrote this?" Nobody answered. A server shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe someone from the math lounge?" A cafe supervisor nearby spoke up. "Only person I saw near that table after you left was Mike. Dishwasher." The dean blinked. "The guy in the back?" The same server gave a soft laugh. "Yeah, he's always here. Doesn't talk much, just works." The dean glanced toward the kitchen window. Michael was rinsing silverware, humming faintly under his breath. The overhead light made a soft halo on his graying hair. He looked up for a second and met the dean's gaze through the small glass pane. His expression didn't change. The dean said nothing. He folded the solution and slipped it into his notebook. Outside, the murmurs started. Who was this guy? Could he really have solved it? Was it a fluke? By late afternoon, a student from the table had posted the image of both napkins online. The caption read, "Mystery Genius! Cafe Dishwasher solves Dean's unsolvable problem." Michael didn't know. He wiped down the final tray, turned off the faucet, and removed his apron slowly. He nodded goodbye to the kitchen staff, stepped out into the cold Boston air, and walked the same 5 blocks to his small basement apartment, his breath curling ahead of him. Inside, on a chipped wooden desk beside an old lamp, lay a thin, worn notebook filled with equations written in delicate script. He added a new one to the last page. He didn't expect recognition. He didn't even expect questions. But the next day, a girl with a calculus textbook waited outside the kitchen. Michael noticed her the moment he stepped into the kitchen. She wasn't in uniform, didn't carry a notepad or a tray. She stood near the service window holding a thick textbook, its edges marked with sticky notes in bright colors. Her backpack rested on a nearby stool, untouched. He tightened the straps of his apron and turned toward the dish station. The hot water hissed as he opened the faucet. A pot clanged against the steel sink. She didn't leave. Finally, she cleared her throat. "Excuse me, are you Michael?" He turned slightly. His voice was soft. "Yes. I'm Emily. I'm in the math graduate program." He gave a polite nod and kept washing. "I saw what you did with the equation yesterday," she added. "The one on the napkin." He paused, just for a breath, then resumed scrubbing. "It wasn't a big deal." "Actually, it was," she said, stepping closer. "That problem was from a doctoral exam 2 years ago. Almost no one got full marks." Michael didn't answer. Emily shifted her weight. "Did you study math? Somewhere else, I mean?" "I used to," he replied, not looking at her. "Where?" He finally set the pot down, wiped his hands on a towel, and looked at her directly. "University of Delhi. I taught there before I came here." She blinked. "You were a professor?" He gave a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "A long time ago." "Why are you—" "Because I needed a job," he interrupted gently. And this one didn't ask many questions. Emily glanced down, unsure of how to respond. "Is there something you needed help with?" he asked, nodding toward the textbook, in her arms. She hesitated, then opened it to a page marked with a neon pink tab. "This one's been giving me trouble. I know the theory, but the steps lose me." Michael studied the page for a moment, then pulled a clean towel from the hook and wiped the counter beside the sink. He gestured for the book. She handed it over carefully, as though passing something valuable. He read silently, then grabbed a paper napkin from the dispenser. With a pen borrowed from the register, he began writing, slow and precise. After 3 lines, Emily leaned forward. "You're not just solving it," she said. "You're teaching through it." Michael kept writing. "It's the only way I know." A few minutes later, she exhaled. "I actually understand it now." He handed the napkin back. "It's easier if you visualize the symmetry. I've been here 3 years, and no one's explained it like that." Michael returned to the sink. Sometimes clarity comes from outside the classroom. That afternoon, Emily wrote a short post on a university forum. No names, no photos. Just a quiet story about a dishwasher in the faculty cafe who broke down a graduate-level equation better than anyone in her department. The post traveled further than she expected. Comments appeared from students, alumni, and even professors. Words like humbling, brilliant, and inspiring filled the thread. By morning, 2 more students waited near the kitchen. One carried a printed assignment, the other just a notebook and a hopeful expression. They asked politely. Michael obliged. By the end of the week, his breaks were no longer solitary. Students rotated through, bringing questions written on index cards and napkins. He answered them all, never rushing, always calm. In the shadows of ivy-covered halls, the university had discovered someone they'd never seen. But not everyone welcomed the attention. At a faculty meeting, a tenured professor scoffed. "Are we really taking academic advice from a kitchen worker?" No one answered. Back in the cafe, Michael poured himself a cup of black coffee and stepped outside for 5 minutes of quiet before the dinner rush. He sipped slowly, watching students walk by, some glancing his way with recognition in their eyes. He didn't wave, he didn't nod, but he smiled. Not because they knew his name now, because someone finally asked the right question. The sky outside had turned to slate when Michael returned home. His building sat tucked between a laundromat and a shuttered deli, its brickwork cracked, but sturdy. Inside, the air smelled faintly of turmeric and old books. He kicked off his worn shoes, hung up his coat, and sat by the small table where a single lamp cast a soft glow over stacked notebooks. He reached for the top one, opened it to a blank page, then stopped. Memories surfaced like dust in sunlight. Years ago, he stood in a much different room, a marble-floored lecture hall in Delhi, chalk in hand, facing rows of students scribbling notes and asking questions with wide-eyed curiosity. He remembered their names, their stories. He remembered the rhythm of the classroom, the smell of ink, the quiet satisfaction of clarity settling over confused faces. But that life had vanished. His wife, Priya, used to say he carried numbers like some men carried grief, always working through equations in his head, muttering symbols under his breath while washing dishes or waiting for the train. She would smile and call it beautiful. Then she got sick. Medical bills devoured their savings. Treatments failed. Immigration paperwork stalled. He buried her ashes near Boston Harbor under a maple tree she once loved on a spring trip. After that, Michael stopped speaking much. He folded his past into silence and learned to scrub pans until his fingers cracked. Now, students were returning, notebooks in hand, asking for help. They didn't know his story. They didn't ask. They only listened, and he only gave. One evening, as he explained a complex limit proof to a sophomore named Caleb, a man leaned against the door frame watching. Professor Mitchell was tall, sharp-featured, and known for precision in every lecture. He cleared his throat once. Michael looked up. "You're Michael Patel," the professor said, "the one who solved Hartley's problem." "I just wrote what I understood." Mitchell stepped inside, arms crossed. "I've seen your work. It's clean, deliberate, rare." Michael nodded once, unsure what response was expected. "I have a question," Mitchell said, pulling out a small folded paper. "Mind looking?" Michael read it once, tapped the pencil against the counter, then began writing. His explanation was quiet, but unhurried. When he finished, Mitchell stared at the page, expression unreadable. "You taught somewhere, didn't you?" Michael didn't answer immediately. He set down the pencil and looked the professor in the eye. "I did. A long time ago." "Why, aren't you teaching now?" "I lost the paperwork, then the time, then the chance." Mitchell folded the paper again. "You didn't lose the ability." He walked away, without another word. That weekend, Michael stayed late to sanitize the cafe floors. A message had been pinned near the break room. "Thank you, Michael. You helped me pass midterms. I owe you tea and cookies forever. Grace." Below it, another note appeared, then another. By Monday, over a dozen lined the corkboard. The kitchen staff started noticing. Lisa from the prep line asked if he'd ever thought about tutoring officially. His manager said someone from the dean's office had called, inquiring about a dishwasher with a particular aptitude. Michael laughed softly. He had never heard himself described that way. At noon, a senior from the economics department approached him in the back alley where he usually took his breaks. She held out a notebook with tentative hands. "My professor said you could explain this better than anyone." He didn't hesitate. He opened the book and began walking her through the logic. Word kept spreading, but not every reaction was warm. A tenured lecturer, known for his ego more than his equations, openly criticized the absurdity of elevating non-faculty voices. He made snide comments in meetings. He called it a distraction. Michael ignored it. One afternoon, Emily stopped by the kitchen again. This time, she carried a small package wrapped in brown paper. "It's nothing fancy," she said, handing it to him. But we all chipped in. Inside was a used graphing calculator engraved with his initials. Michael ran his thumb over the buttons, then looked up. We just wanted to say, "You're teaching, whether you meant to or not." His reply was simple. "Then I'll keep showing up." He didn't crave applause. He didn't need validation. But each question handed to him was a kind of trust, and that, finally, was enough.